Okay, it's time for our book slot. In her debut book, Justice Served with a Question Mark, the trial and conviction of Bob Hewitt, news reporter Jamaine Krige takes us back to the courtroom as she unpacks and walks the reader through a story that attracted the attention of both local and international media. The book covers events from the former South African tennis champion Bob Hewitt. He was accused, charged, went to trial and convicted of rape of sexual assault by 4 women and was coached as minors. Without giving away too much, Jamaine joins me here in studio to talk about the book. Jamaine, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Maybe the most important thing to start with is that there's a question mark when you talk about justice served.
I think initially when we decided to do this book, it was justice served. It was a statement. Bob Hewitt had been found guilty, he had been sentenced to jail. But as the story progressed and as I spoke to the various role players, one thing that everybody had in common, and up until this point, is nobody is really satisfied with the outcome thus far. There are 2 camps. There are the supporters of Bob Hewitt, and there are also the supporters of his victims. And regardless of which side you're talking to, everybody is questioning whether justice has really been served. Bob Hewitt supporters obviously believing that there was that he was not tried fairly, and that the verdict and the sentence is unfair, and that he is innocent. And also the supporters, despite the guilty verdict, sitting with the fact that Bob Hewitt is, after more than a year, still on his farm in Addo, busy appealing the process under house arrest, and has not yet seen the inside of a jail cell.
You covered this story from day one. You even broke some aspects of this story. Sitting there and watching this is multi-layered. This is not just a one-sided story of a man who has harbored these dark secrets and have done these horrible things. I mean, he's been convicted of them. Talk to me about what, just being first-hand witness to the different layers of the stories.
I think when I was initially sitting in court, I saw that firstly, the interest from the public in this specific trial. You've got the fall of a hero, basically. And I saw the public interest, but also the reaction of the people in the court, the reaction of the people who were interacting with the story. You're also sitting with a situation where, as I said, I got to deal with a lot of the various role players. And you get to see people like Bob Hewitt, who is an international tennis legend.
We grew up with him. Yeah.
He's also a convicted rapist. But during my interactions with the book, you also get to see different aspects. You get to see him as a husband of 50 plus years. You get to see him as a father whose children still stand by him unconditionally, and also as a grandfather. You also get to have a look at the interactions. I like to say that rape is not something that just affects the accuser and the accused. And what was very interesting during the writing of this book was to look at the secondary victims and to look at how an offense like this and a trial like this actually shakes the fundamentals of relationships, of family units, and of society and sporting communities as a whole.
And is that part of the angle you incorporated in writing the book? Because we know the story, we've witnessed it, we've seen it, but you've had to bring something kind of maybe fresh, not a new angle, but something fresh from that perspective.
I think a lot of us obviously have followed the story. It was big. One of the main problems I had as a reporter covering the trial is that we're very restrained. We've got time constraints, we've got space constraints when reporting on this.
So there's a lot that you have to cut out.
A trial, a day's worth of trial content is often reduced to 400 words in a newspaper or a 3-minute bulletin in the news. And what I also try to do is have a look not just at the content of the trial, but the social context in which a trial like this takes place. Because a trial doesn't take place in a vacuum. There are certain social factors, there are certain economic factors, there are certain historical factors that all came together in this seemingly perfect storm.
So you leave a question mark on the jacket of the book, Justice Served with a question mark. Does that leave it open because he's now appealing for maybe a part 2? that you would have to kind of go and write this? Is there excuse me, do you feel compelled to finish the story?
I do. I think one of the problems that we encountered with the writing of this book was that the book covers everything up until the point where he was convicted. And from there, so much has happened, and so much has changed, and there are so many factors that came in. The emails between his victims, his accusers, that was exposed last year, the subsequent appeal, and also the reaction thus far from the victims, from Hewitt and his family themselves. I think that there's definitely more to explore about this story.
And we'll be waiting in anticipation. Jamaine Krige, she's a journalist and she's an author now. Her debut novel called Justice Served, with a question mark, the trial and conviction of Bob Hewitt. It's a fascinating read. I urge everybody to go and get a copy. Let's get yourself a copy. Let's talk about it. Let's read it. Let's share it within our book communities. And who knows, I think it can spark a debate or two. We're taking a break. Don't go anywhere.